This is the Tiger Porsche, a Tier 7 German heavy tank. It's a very strong one at that. Just like the Tiger 1, both of these tanks boast very, very good guns. 8.8 centimeters that are very easily able to rip into their opponents with over 2,400 damage per minute. Great penetration at 203 in the standard. And it's also got pretty good alpha at 220 per shot. This tank is incredibly dangerous against not only Tier 7, 6s, but also even sometimes against Tier 8 opponents. But imagine, you get the Tiger P hull, and then you put a KV-4 turret on it and an SU-100Y gun. Well, that would be the Tankenstein, an incredibly strong but yet weak vehicle. It's got a great gun, but only if it manages to hit its shells. Now, talking about the armor profile, this is the Tankenstein. It's interesting. It's very similar to the Tiger P. You can see while it says the upper plate's worse, it's really not, just because the Tankenstein has worse pen, but really, their upper plates are the same. The entire hull of both of these vehicles are exactly the same, which is great. That means you're able to get some very, very nice bounces on the upper plate of this vehicle at 235. You can angle it, side scrape. That's incredibly thick for a Tier 7 heavy tank. But it still does have its drawbacks. The side armor on this vehicle at 80 millimeters thick, it's quite weak, just like the Tiger P. What that means is any 150 millimeters are going to rip you into pieces with HE. However, in Update 8.1, that 80 millimeters is going to be going to 100, which is actually going to help out the vehicle quite a bit. Now, the turret is still going to be a massive weak spot, and anybody going up against this tank, that's where I'd suggest to shoot it. Sorry, I had a bit of a stroke there, but shoot the turret. It's only about 150 thick. The top part's only about 150 as well, and you can basically shoot this at any angle. It's very, very easy to penetrate. That's the biggest disadvantage of actually running the 130 over the 105 for the Tankensteins, because, well, you can see this actually gives you massive turret armor. And you can aim this up and hide that big old cupola, and you can use your gun depression here and still basically hide that cupola, where if you're running the 130, yeah, you're going to have a much harder time trying to hide that cupola, of course. But well, with the 130, you do get that huge alpha. So let's go right back in the Blitz here and see just exactly what this tank was able to perform in these two replays. Now, I did play a couple games in the tank today. The biggest killer of this gun is the damage per minute. It's 1,500. You're sitting at an 18.1 second reload. That's an incredibly long reload when you think about it. And yeah, you are going to struggle quite a bit trying to rip into enemy opponents if there's a vehicle that has high DPM, let's say like an FV201. Yeah, that tank, you're basically, your goose is cooked. That thing has 3,000 DPM. It's double your damage per minute. You might shoot him once, but after you shoot him once, you're basically done. So it does have huge drawbacks as well. It's incredibly slow. The Tiger P is already not a super fast tank. So imagine keeping the same engine as a Tiger P, but putting on twice the frickin', weight, because you got a KV-4 turret on it and as well a much larger gun. Well, yeah, again, that's going to make it much slower, much more cumbersome, so that's not amazing. Those are big drawbacks. The side armor is very weak, and of course, because it's so slow, it's very, very easy to get to the side of it. So hopefully, the buff in Update 8.1 will help the vehicle out on that part. But I actually think the Tankenstein's a great vehicle. Some people disagree with this, but the reason I think it's so great is because literally in one shot we dealt 544. And this shot right here, that's 574. Literally one shot, and we took off about 2/3 of a Tier 6 hit point pool. That's insane. We're at 1,100 damage. And sure, this isn't like a Smasher or an Annihilator that's broken, but it does actually have some very tricky armor, and you can get a lot of bounces with it. There we go. Again, a 600 almost roll there. Like, we're sitting at 1,678 damage now. Like, that's pretty insane how much damage this racks up. The issue is, again, that DPM is very, very bad. If your team's falling apart, this tank is very, very quickly going to fall apart as well. And the aiming time, yeah, you're going to have to wait and wait and wait. But when it does hit, 514. And by the way, that was a massive low roll. The HE penetration and damage on this thing is 600 damage. I don't know what the pen is. I'd say probably about like 70 or 60 millimeters, but still, that's pretty dang impressive. And here we are at 2,263 damage. Boom! 510. 2,773. So there wasn't anything spectacular about this game. You can see it was just kind of a walk in the park. It was against Tier 6s, and that makes sense. But that is just what the Tankenstein is able to do if you get it into a game like that where it's able to push the tide to the battle. Now, this is another game I wanted to show, specifically because it was against Tier 8s. Tier 8s are where you can make your best argument that the Tankenstein would really suck, because, yeah, they've got more alpha. Not more alpha than this tank. This thing actually has the highest alpha for basically any Tier 8 heavy in the game. But what they do have is more alpha, respectively, tier for tier. You know, a vehicle like the M6 and the T29, well, then you go to the M6 Experimental, that's got 400 alpha. You know, a lot of vehicles are sitting at 400 damage per shot. If you're a heavy, 460 if you're tank destroyers. It hurts more. It hurts a lot more. More pen is in these tiers. But because you have such a huge alpha with, by the way, not terrible penetration, your standard's already about 230 effective if you add in shell normalization, and the premium's about 200 effective because it also is AP. It's actually not too bad. As long as you know how to penetrate your opponents, you're not that far off because, again, this is a Tier 7 heavy. You're not supposed to be ripping into Tier 8s. Here we are, Scorpion G, and yeet! 548 into that Scorpion, and that's literally almost half that guy's health gone. If we had shot on HE there, greatly, it wouldn't have penned, but still, that's so deadly. We basically ruined half of that guy's game already, and we just back up with no repercussions whatsoever. Repercussions, should I say. So here we are again. We've got the IS-3 Defender in front of me. We got the Action 10 off to the side. Now you're going to see that this game's a weird one. It does take some very interesting turns. We got the AMX behind me. We got the FE pushing up in the front, and here comes the IS-3 Defender. Now, as I did say, the premium is not great for penetrating heavies, but my standard is plenty to cut through right through that IS-3 Defender, and with that, we out-traded him an extra 100 hit points, and then I just backed straight up in the cover, and technically, we win that engagement. Not only that, but the Tankenstein has a freaking huge hit point pool. How many hit points is the IS-3 Defender sitting at? 1,700. And if you look at mine, I'm at 1,696. That's right. This tank has basically the same hit points as Tier 8 heavy tanks. And when you have that huge alpha, plus that huge pen, it is a great vehicle. Here we go again, aiming in on that FE. 512. I was so worried that that M6 was going to block that shell. But hey, we're doing good here. And this is what I have to say about the Tankenstein, is it's not amazing. It's fun, it's a good tank, and you're going to see here like this T28 HTC, he's going to regret life quite a bit. We're just going to aim right in on Adam, and boop, yeah, he died. It is very fun to be able to rip somebody's hit point pool so easily, but the DPM makes it quite unenjoyable at certain times. And there are many games I've played in this tank where you just really can't do any damage. Like here, you see I'm reloading so long, I just can't get that shell out. But hey, still did get the pen. Again, that standard pen's pretty good. And it's not bad. It's just not a great tank. And even after they buff it, I still don't know if it would be worth it. If it's about $15 or less, I'd say maybe if you really wanted to get this tank. But in my personal opinion, I'd say save your money. Get a vehicle like, let's say, the Lupus, or just any other Tier 8 or 7 heavy tank, or even Tier 8 at that point, that does a better job, because this thing does struggle. The DPM is quite poor, and I don't think the buff is going to change much. A great buff to this vehicle would be giving it engine power. It is so incredibly slow. It's got an 11.6 power to weight ratio. Just to put in comparison here, let's get like a T95 up and see what a T95's comparison is. So we had 11 there, and the T95's power to weight is 8.1. So it basically is the same power to weight as a T95, but yet it has over double the speed, which means that it takes so long to get up to top speed. So yeah, that's what I have to say. Not bad, but it's also nothing amazing. I wanted to make a video on this talking about the tank because, of course, people always think sometimes that a vehicle gets buffed, it's going to be much better, especially because the Tankenstein is getting that armor buff. Well, I'm here to tell you, I don't think much is going to change. If you didn't like the tank before, you're not going to like it now. Hopefully all of you enjoyed today's video. Please consider smashing that subscribe button down below. Stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.